Labour Weekend 2021, top of the south. The Molesworth Station Road is a stunning piece of New Zealand. It's only open for a few months of the year, from Labour Weekend to around Easter, generally speaking. Myself and a mate, Todd, were lucky enough to take two outstanding bikes down to the top of the South Island for opening day of the Molesworth Station. I say lucky enough because other parts of New Zealand were still effectively in COVID alert lockdowns. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We start the story 5 days before departure. I picked up the Suzuki V-Strom 1050 XT from TSS Motorcycles and was surprised to find it had precisely 8 kilometres on the clock. Better look into break-in procedures, I thought. I took it straight round to Todd's place, knowing he'd be eager to get to work on the settings of the bike. He loves tinkering with fork preload, rebound and compression damping, and we worked on it together, setting the sag in the rear shock also. Taking a lesson from Dave Moss, we put a cable tie around the fork to see how much of the travel we were using. We rolled the bars slightly forward from factory and installed my quad-lock phone mount, a Beeline navigation device on the handlebars, and the Ventura Evo pack rack. On the motorway home, I experimented with the adjustable screen, finding it was best in the high setting. I would have liked it slightly higher, but that was pretty much it for the setup of the V-Strom. On Wednesday, 3 days out from departure, we headed to Motormart to pick up the Harley-Davidson Pan America. I've already ridden this bike for a solid week, so I let Todd take it home and get acquainted. Because everything is controlled electronically, there was less setup to do on this bike. We popped a cable tie around the fork just to see what the electric shower suspension was up to, and put the seat in the high position.
Alright, so on the Pan America, just going to quickly run through some of the changes that we had to make coming into the ride. Let's start with the luggage. So I've added these hooks here, the Kriega hooks, these little straps. You can see what it looks like here. So on the back, I've actually done these ones down to the subframe just because I wanted a bit more stability. I wanted to be able to pull down much stronger on the front straps. And this is plastic, so I don't want to pull down too far at the back. So I'll get most of the strength in the front, and then the back will just support it so it doesn't flip back up. But I'm going to be putting this one on the back, the US 20, the Kriega US 20, and that should be enough for all the tools and my clothes and everything else. I may have a backpack as well. We'll see. We'll see what we can fit into the Kriega. Okay. So what else did we do? We rolled these forward. So we've got a Torx screw here. We should call it a Torx bolt, really. And they were just a little bit too far back for me. So if you can see here, it's quite flat, reasonably flat. It was coming down a little bit when we first got the bike. Try and get to the side. You can see that it's coming down a little bit, but it's much flatter than it used to be. And I was really trying to get that balance between coming down and then being too far up. One of the problems with, particularly my dimensions, is that the distance from me out to the front of the bars here is huge. And because of that, if we actually lift the bars up too high, I can't even reach them. Like I'd be just on my fingertips. Otherwise, I'd be sitting right up onto the tank. So there is a limit for me, at least my body size, how much I can bring them up. But this was a nice compromise. I closed my eyes and put my fist out like this, and I tested whereabouts I naturally felt I wanted to grab. And on the road, it was about here. It was a little bit lower. And when I was standing up, I was in sort of a standing up position, and I did the same thing, and I wanted to grab close to where it is now. So I went through that exercise. Really good to do with your eyes closed, and you kind of see where your hands end up. Also, what's kind of interesting is I had to shift the bars over this way. Now, that may be kind of me more so than the bike, but it is one thing to get right, because just getting this all perfect aligned is great, but your body's not perfect aligned. And while I noticed this, this here doesn't actually line up with the screen, which kind of is a little bit annoying from an OCD perspective. But anyway, that's fine. I had to shift it all across to get it into a good setup for my shoulders. And obviously that meant that the levers, when we twisted the bars up, the levers were in the wrong position. So once again, a torque screw here, adjusted the levers. I brought them just down a touch. So from here, road riding on to be able to reach out and at least one finger come in on the clutch. So that puts me in the lowest setting here. We've got different settings. I'm on number 1 to be able to get that very quick grab here. And then when we go to the brake side, I am on, I think, can we see that? I think it's 3, I think I'm on 3. So when I get in here, that gives me just that one finger brake, which is good. And if I'm riding quite hard, I can get in 2 fingers quite easy. And it's important that I can get in here without actually moving my wrist. I still have to bring back a little bit, not too much. And that's really about making sure the ergonomics are set up correctly for both road riding, but then off-road, because that's obviously the challenge with these bikes. If you're going to do both, you have to get that compromise. And obviously I've got the mirrors to suit because that was required with moving the bars forward. On the front end, we didn't do too much because there's not much you can do with suspension-wise on these bikes. They're all electronic. But we did add a trusty cable tie here, and I marked bottom out there. It's not a very straight line, but 190 mils of travel. So it's a little tricky with this one because there's so much weight on the front. I had to, as you can see here, if I push up the front end, get in there. I can't even push it up. So it's quite heavy. So there's probably about 20 mils from this cable tie of just static sag in the front with the center stand down. So I had to try and get that estimate, then take that away from 190 and then figure out where that is on the bottom and then mark the bottom out. Now obviously we can't control preload here, but I'm very curious to know how much of this travel we're using in the different ride modes. So if it's electronic, we're expecting the electronics to do the right thing. I want to know how close we get to bottom out and also how much of the travel are we using. If we're only using this up here, that's going to be a problem. We really want to be down in this range. We want to be, at least from here to here is where we want to be finding ourselves most of the time. And the last change I made was the brake. So when we came and when we got the bike, the brake was down here. It was so low, you could barely touch it. And that was on even on the high setting. So that's on the low setting there. Flip that, that's on the high setting. But even at that, it was a bit too low for me. So what I did is I brought it up using the screw over here. So I unloosened this nut, and you can see that it's supposed to be anodized black here, but there's no other nut to grab without really pulling this boot off. So I just had my pointy nose pliers and moved that around, but the anodizing didn't go so well. So we moved the brake lever from down here up to about here, and then on the off-road, when we get off-road in the Molesworth, we can actually change this over and give us that little bit extra height for standing up particularly. Yeah, on the road, this will be much better. But as it came, it was just way too low. There's really nothing you could do. That's it. Tire pressures, I did check the tire pressures. Came in with 35 on the front, and the back was set at 40. I wanted to test them out at 35, 36 to see how that goes. And if we need to add some more air, we can add some more air. But 40 is probably going to be fine if you're just doing highway miles and you really want to save those tires. But I wanted to get a balance set up front and rear, and then assess it as we go. We can add air and we can remove air. I've got my compressor in there, and I believe we can hook that up to the V-Strom to be able to get some battery and air up and air down as we need. The only one complaint I've got so far is when we received this chain, this is a lot of slack. It's heaps of slack. I would not be riding that much slack normally, but turns out this is a 32 mil bolt. I don't have a one of my tire spanners isn't of 32, a ring spanner, and nor do I have a socket of 32, so I can't change this. I know it's just kind of doing these in the back, but I can't move this without undoing this. So this is a lot of play, but it's going to be fine for now. I'm not super concerned, but I wish I could just get it a little tighter, because I believe that's potentially causing a risk for us on the trip. But there we are, Pan America set up as best as we can do for this ride, and we leave tomorrow morning.
Saturday morning, the morning of departure, we plan to meet at the Inter-Islander ferry terminal around 7:20 a.m. I was on the V-Strom, loaded up with Ventura Evo Rack and Evo 22 Jetstream pack. This was full of camera gear and tools, as well as a Kriega US 20 pack from Motogear..nz, full of clothes and other essentials. I had my Kriega T18 backpack on also just in case. Todd was on the Harley-Davidson Pan America with the Kriega US 20 pack full of clothes and essentials. Because we were both running a tubeless tyre setup, before departure we hit up Eurobike Wholesale and Motogear.co.nz for some puncture repair kits, knowing that if we didn't take any, we'd need them, and if we took a couple, then it was likely we wouldn't need them at all. So Saturday morning we met at the ferry terminal as arranged. Spirits were high and we made our way to the waiting area in the gorgeous morning sunlight. We loaded onto the ship, put the bikes on the centre stands with front wheels in the chocks, dropped them down, and headed upstairs to find a seat and some breakfast. Landing in Picton around midday, we were greeted with warm, temperate weather, a thin layer of cloud with sun peeking through, perfect riding conditions. We set our beeline navigation devices with the GPX files we'd created earlier and got on with the job of making our way down State Highway 1 towards Blenheim to fuel up and then on to Taylor Pass. The road to Taylor Pass is a funny one. You access it from a random little suburb out the back of Blenheim. It looks like you're riding through any old subdivision until you suddenly break into the countryside and start winding your way over the hill. There's roughly about 10 kilometres of gravel from memory, and you come down the other side, finding yourself in Awatiri Valley Road before you know it. We paused at the intersection to grab a couple of photos and had a chat with an old mate on an electric bicycle. From there we headed south on Awatiri Valley Road, which it turns out back in July had been quite badly damaged by flooding, with complete sections of the road washed away. What we didn't know, and what wasn't made very clear by local council or any signage, was that Awatiri Valley Road was actually only open for residents. Looking back on it now, it seems like a gross overreaction, as parts of the road had gravel sections. We couldn't see anything wrong with the road. We continued south for about 30 kilometres until we were flagged down by a guy on a DR650 and his mate on a black Tenere 700. Apparently, they go faster in black, I'm informed. These guys told us they'd been down to the northern gate of the Molesworth station, around another 50 kilometres from where they'd stopped us. Because the gate had not been unlocked, they couldn't go any further and had turned around and were making their way back to State Highway 1. This confused us at the time, as all the research I'd done leading up to the trip stated the gate would be unlocked at 7 AM on the Saturday of Labour weekend. Well, it was around 2 PM on the Saturday of Labour weekend, and the gate was still closed. What were we going to do? Ride up to the gate and jump it? Maybe if we had smaller enduro bikes, that could have been an option. The frustrating thing was, though, we heard from other riders that the southern gate to the Molesworth station was open, so we could in fact access the same northern boundary gate from both sides. Alright, so we got the stunning V-Strom 1050. Thank you very much, Suzuki New Zealand. You've done a great job with this bike. Well, I think it was Japan that actually made the bike, but man, what a great bike. You've got rider modes, you've got traction control, ABS, she's all controllable, all electric. Brilliant. Couple of little modifications. Thank you, Suzuki, for putting the USB on the side of there to charge me phone. Nice little quad lock to hold me phone. We've got the Kriega US 20 on the back and the Ventura Evo rack full of camera equipment. That's fantastic. Nice little touch here. I do like that the XT model has the crash bars from factory. We are navigated today by the Beeline, a nice little hockey puck which connects to your phone. You put your map in there, turn by turn navigation, no muss, no fuss. Over here, Todd.
Hello.
Tell us about what we've affectionately dubbed your bike for the weekend, even though I've been riding it a little bit, the Harley-Davidson Pan America.
The Pan America. Well, my bike has got my stuff on it at the moment, doesn't it? It's brilliant off-road. It's it gets you out of trouble so much. The traction control does a really good job at just kicking in once you're sort of, I don't know, maybe 20 degrees around on the slide. You just power through and it just holds it and moves you forward. You don't get that whiskey throttle right out sideways, which, for sometimes is a bit of fun when you're doing that, but this bike really holds in line. I think if you had it too far sideways, it wouldn't actually do a very good job at pulling itself back, because it's still very front heavy. So the electronics are brilliant on the bike. Brakes, you said you had trouble with the brakes. It wasn't quite good for you? You felt a little bit?
I wasn't too stoked about the ABS, but I mean, I got my head...
Yeah.
Once you get your head around using both at the same time, which I probably should have been doing to begin with, to be honest.
Both front and rear you're talking about here? Front and rear, yeah. Front, yeah. I found it really compliant on the road. Obviously, look at the tyres here. They're quite different to, what you call them, 70-30 tyres? Probably 80-20?
A little bit more off-road biased than the V-Strom's tyres, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you can feel that. Like the V-Strom is sort of moving a lot more on the gravel, moving around the place, where the Harley feels a bit more planted. Look, if you look at the gravel, like it's not very gnarly. It's pretty straightforward, pretty normal gravel. But I'd say I feel a bit more comfortable on the Pan America right now compared to the V-Strom. But hey, when we were on the tar seal, the V-Strom was amazing. I loved it on that. So
your navigation by the puck, affectionately known as the puck.
The puck.
The B-line, and check out the full color TFT display on the Harley-Davidson.
Covered with dust.
Nice wee sweep there too. One thing I did notice about the Harley-Davidson, a lot of buttons. Have you used any of these buttons here yet, Todd?
I've used the ride mode button, that's it. Ride mode and cruise control. That's kind of it. Everything else I set up once last night and that was good to go. Aside from all the other adjustments I did, but you know, it's electronics wise, set it up once, just change the mode. Kind of it for me.
Right. Well, the plan was to do the Molesworth. We are about 50 k's from the Molesworth gate, that's that way. We're on Awatiri Valley Road. Check out the view in this valley. This is absolutely outstanding. Very green. Must have been very wet here recently. However, bad news, Todd. Molesworth closed.
It's closed. We're not going.
We caught up with a couple of riders going back the other way. They've been down to the gate. They said it was a big gnarly padlock on the gate and we're not getting through there. So we're about 50 k's away from the gate. It's that way. And we're going back that way. Do you know where we're going?
No idea.
What was the plan? Are we going to go main road, Kaikoura, and then kind of over the hill somewhere?
Over the hill.
Somewhere about Mouse Point?
Yes, we end up at Mouse Point, but I don't know the name of the hill. But I heard there's something special at the top. So let's go find out.
Let's go find out.
This would add around 200 kilometres to our trip and see us roll into Waiā around 7:30 p.m. We were a bit pissed off, but we packed up our cameras and hightailed it back to Seddon.
Alright, so the turning circle on the Harley is incredible. I'm going to do a tightest circle I can, trying not to spin the wheel, which would be sharper. I'll just do as tight as I can. Pretty impressive.
Rolling down State Highway 1 south to Kaikoura, we felt the temperature drop. The readout on our bikes was showing a cool 14 degrees. The road was awesome. There wasn't much traffic and we were able to make good time.
Okay, we've just stopped on the side of the road just north of Kaikoura in this new section of road that was rebuilt after the massive quake. The V-Strom is doing a fantastic job. Cruise control is outstanding. Seat a little bit hard on the rear end. Pan America, Todd.
It's really good. It's really good. Yeah, I can't fault it. I really can't.
Can't fault it at all? There's nothing you don't like about this bike?
Well, I think I could be picky. I could find some things, but for the riding we just did, the 100 k's along this road, perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Right, next stop, Kaikoura.
We set the cruise control and took in the rolling corners as we snaked our way south between the mountains and the sea. stopping for a breather in Kokolda. We then took the right just south of the township and got on the road towards Mount Lyford. More rolling left-right corners. When we came off a one-lane bridge, I was on the Harley and I was showered with a sprinkle of white. Todd in front of me had run over a patch of spilt wet paint, and this had sprayed all over the Harley. I pulled over quickly and set to work getting as much of it off the bike as I could with my only rag. We found that it had sprayed all over the underside of the V-Strom as well. We removed as much as we could and carried on towards Waiau. Okay, it's been a long road, much like that one. We've been up Mount Lyford. We couldn't get through the Molesworth. We came down State Highway 1 to Kaikoura and we cut through. We're now at Roden Cars, which is a funky little oasis of what seems to be a racetrack and some home-built Formula One cars or something. Very cool. Did you know this place existed?
No. Well, I think I've heard about it. Rumours on the internet.
That dude that stopped us from going over the Molesworth was going on about Formula One cars, and I'm like, what?
Yeah. Formula One cars in the middle of South Island? Yeah, I don't know.
Tell him who you are. You get a ride.
yeah, that's what he said. He's like, just tell him who you are. Referring to you, not me. You.
Didn't he say go to the pub?
Well, we went to the lodge, but they were closed, right? So.
Oh, so it was the lodge. That was closed. Right.
So the lodge is where we could have gone to meet the fellow that has this racetrack. I'm sure when he watches this video, he'll be like, guys, come back and ride your bikes around my track. Or not.
So we've just swapped bikes. I was riding the Pan America from Kaikoura up Mount Lyford and back to where we are now, which is about 15 k's away from our accommodation. Todd, you've ruined my fuel economy on the V-Strom. Crikey. When I gave it to you, it had like 150 k's left in the tank. Now it's telling us it's got nothing.
50 k's later, it says we've got 50 left.
Service and 229 k's. Whew. Reckon it's got 157 k's in the tank now.
Oh. Okay, so that's dynamic. Looks like it changes.
But it is on the kickstand, so.
Okay.
We are about done for the day. Well, I'm about done for the day. So I thought we'd do a quick wrap up.
I'm definitely done for the day.
Thoughts so far?
While
you have a thought, I will tell you how many Ks we've done.
Okay.
302 since Blenheim.
302. It feels it. Look, I'm super impressed with the Pan America, way more than I expected. And with the V-Strom, I haven't been a bit comfortable yet. Like, I still feel a little bit, my wrists are feeling a bit sore. I think we might change the bars a bit. We did set it up originally, but I think we need to do it again. Like, it just doesn't feel right. And the rear brake's a bit low. I don't know. Like, that's what we're here for. So we'll do some changes tonight, and then tomorrow we'll ride it again and decide how it feels.
Surprised by the Pan America?
Really surprised. What, were you surprised by the suspension settings, changing it from sport to road? Yeah, so I've ridden this bike quite a bit, but really only in town and state highway. Yeah. When you get onto this twisty stuff and you flick it between sport and road mode, it's really noticeable that sport mode, it wants to go hard, and it's taut and it's nimble and it's hard and it's point
flicky.
And turn, right? Sorry, point and twist. You just point where you want to go, boom, straight through.
And then when you get a bit jaded after about 250 k's, you knock it down to road mode.
You just bounce along.
And it's night and day.
Yep. Big difference. And then when you hit the gravel, off-road mode, and it starts to let you slide around a bit, and it's good. I'm really impressed, yeah.
What can you say?
There's nothing I would change about this bike at this point. It just works.
So that's your favourite bike out of these two today?
I want to love the V-Strom because I've enjoyed V-Stroms for so long. So I got to do some work to make it right because I think I can. Okay, and that's about where we'll leave it today. Thanks very much for watching. Check out Motogear.nz. Thank you very much to all the people that have given us gear to use on this trip. The Kriega US 20s have done exactly what we want them to do and essentially just be rocks. Look at them.
just sitting there, just doing nothing, just not shifting, just doing what you want them to do. The Ventura Evo kit has been absolutely outstanding as far as a camera bag. You can get, this is the 22, the Evo, the Jetstream 22. You can get the bigger one, the 60. I haven't brought that today because we didn't need it. The Cardos have been doing really, really well. What time did we first fire up the Cardos? About midday. It's now coming up
to 7?
7 o'clock. They've been going solidly the whole time.
Yeah.
The B-lines, yeah, like the B-lines. Look at this, look at this. It's still telling us where to go.
Saying go to the racetrack.
Yeah, definitely. And, oh, my gloves. Me, Macna Evo, no, Macna, I'll put the name up on the screen. They've been doing really well, possibly a bit warm for hard out adventure, but perfectly good for this touring stuff that we've been doing. So yeah, and my 1-ton gear, I took the waterproof layer out of the jacket because I didn't need it. Got a little bit chilly when we got down to like 14 degrees, so I put a thermal long sleeve on underneath. No dramas. Okay, I'm done talking. Let's go.
Rolling into town slightly ahead of schedule at 7:05. We parked the bikes up, glad to be off them after 7 hours of riding, lubed the chains, unclipped our Kriega packs, and headed inside to relax. Good morning, superstars. It is Sunday. We are in Waiau, which is a very, very quiet, small little place, halfway between State Highway 1 and Hanmer, roughly. Just the west-hand side of Mount Lyford, which is where we went yesterday. Had dinner last night, had a beer or two. We lubed the chains on the bikes and slept, as you do. Woke up this morning with a small wee dusting of moisture on the bikes. Obviously it just got a slightly bit damp last night, but otherwise all is well. Now pack up our gear, go find some breakfast, and then today's adventure includes, I think it's called the Lindis Pass, or the Lewis Pass, I get confused between the two, probably the Lewis Pass, through Murchison and up to Blenheim. It's going to be a good day. Day 2. I work early around 7 AM and set about packing my gear. For some reason, when I'm on a bike trip, I have this bad habit of getting to my accommodation and my bag just exploding all over the room. I had charged all of my devices, including phone, Cardo Packtalk Bold, 2 cameras, but interestingly, the B-Line had only used 9% of its battery the previous day. This makes me think it would be really good for as much as a week-long bike trip with minimal charging. Bikes packed up, we pushed them out of the motor camp so as not to disturb the residents who were sleeping, and once out on the street, fired them into life. After a quick warm-up, we were on the long, straight, flat roads again. Destination, Clevedon. For breakfast at the Red Post Cafe and a splash of fuel. By this time, I'd spent a lot of time on the V-Strom, and Todd had really got to know the Pan America. And if asked which I preferred, I was struggling to find an answer. But I was leaning slightly towards the Suzuki, mainly because how familiar it felt. Very similar to my Tenere 700 in ergonomics. Breakfast and fuel done, we set the B-lines for Murchison and got cracking on the Lewis Pass. Where the previous day had offered views of the sea with wide open State Highway 2 corners, Day 2 on the Lewis Pass saw us carving up tighter yet still flowing twisties through forest. No time for cruise control here. The V-Strom was all about 3rd and 4th gear bank turns and showing why it's such a popular bike. The Harley-Davidson Pan America really did make a name for itself here, however. It's an adventure touring bike after all, and wow, what a touring bike it is. Flicking between street and sport modes, you could really feel the suspension stiffen up and the power becomes more available. Sport mode really is an all-attack mode, whereas street mode has plenty of power, but still kind of mops your brow and tells you everything's going to be alright. Both bikes absolutely ate up the Lewis Pass. We stopped around the halfway point and swapped bikes. Todd had been going on about how great the Pan America's seat was, and it was only then I realised how hard the V-Strom seat actually was. That's probably the first thing on the list of modifications for for the V-Strom 1050 if I was to ever own one. It's absolutely fine for commuting. Short rides, no problem. I actually appreciated the slightly firmer seat off-road. After 3 days in the saddle, touring really does require something a little kinder to your rear end. We rolled into Murchison and stopped for a quick coffee and plan our next moves. We noticed a couple of DR650s across the road. Turns out the guys who had stopped us on the way to the Molesworth gate had decided to come this way as well. We cracked it for a quick chat and then went our separate ways. On an earlier trip, I'd been shown this quaint little lakeside village called T7Adventures at the northern entrance to the Rainbow Road. It's a place where it seems any motorcyclist passing through takes the same photo. I explained this to Todd, and we agreed it would be rude not to pop in ourselves. After all, it was only 11 AM, and only about a 30k detour, plus the road from T7Adventures to Nelson is an awesome piece of twisty state highway. Hey Todd.
Hey.
Welcome to T7Adventures.
First time here. It's beautiful.
What a spot. This is the spot, like, whenever you see an adventure rider on a tour around the North Island, sorry, top of the South Island, this is the spot they come to.
I'll see why. Do they do this with their bikes as well?
This is the photo. It's on Facebook, that's the photo right there.
Yeah.
You haven't been around the top of the South Island if you haven't taken that photo.
Yeah, it's glorious.
Want to go for a swim?
I think you should go for a swim.
I dare you to jump off that jetty over there. Go say good day to the eels.
You double dare me?
Double dare, because, we are 12. Once again, setting our beelines, we were off. It's amazing who you end up talking to on a motorcycle trip. Everywhere you stop, someone wants to come up and talk about your bikes or recount the days when they rode a motorcycle. We had plenty of people asking about the Harley, which is what you would expect. It's Harley-Davidson's first non-cruiser. It's a big deal. T7Adventures was no exception. We had a few good chats with a few current and ex-riders. Having been on the bike for about 5 hours now, I remembered a really good bakery on the way from T7Adventures to Nelson. So once again we set the beelines and got on the road. At this point, for me to describe the riding, I'm running out of words that I haven't already used. Lefty righty, twisty and flowing are all that really comes to mind. And with the Cardo Pack Talk Bold comm kits installed in each of our helmets, the ability to yarn as we rode really made the trip go quickly. We stopped in at the Wakefield Bakery for a chicken pie. So good, I went back for a second one and then headed to our accommodation in Nelson for a well-deserved break. Well, good morning from sunny Nelson on day 3 of our massive adventure. And this is what the bikes look like after 3 days of gravel and tar seal. Really getting over there on that tyre, which is good to see. Probably more so Todd than me. I think the Harley's really got places to hold dirt. There's quite a bit of grime in there. Definitely getting over there on the Harley's Michelin as well. Day 3 was our final day on the road, and from Nelson we had a relatively short ride to Picton to catch the ferry home. We had planned to take in the scenic and relaxed 80km/h road from Nelson to Molesworth Bridge, then on to Havelock, and from there we were taking a left and heading along the mostly 50km/h Queen Charlotte Drive. This is similar to the route that we had planned on the ill-fated Harley-Davidson Pan America launch. This event was cancelled in the end because of a nasty storm which rolled in, which in fact was the cause of the damage to Awatiri Valley Road also. More about this later. At the door around 8 AM, we were almost the only people on the roads. Shot off for a quick coffee, and then eager to get to Picton with plenty of buffer time, we hit the state highway. Not far out of Nelson there's an 80km/h zone, where the road winds around and over the hill down to Molesworth Bridge. I was doing around 95km/h to catch up with Todd when I came around a right-hander, and to my shock, saw the first police car of the entire trip. He saw me as well, flashed his lights, but never actually gave chase, a lucky warning. It would have been difficult to explain to Suzuki New Zealand why they were being sent a speeding ticket for their brand new V-Strom in the South Island. We wound our way into the hills with moist, wispy clouds around every corner. Pretty much the only other vehicles on the road were milk tankers. The sun soon broke through and started warming things up, and by the time we got to Havelock we were in full sunshine. Vents open on our riding gear, and we made our way along Queen Charlotte Drive at between 30 and 50 km per hour, stopping at around 9 cents of temporary traffic lights. Turns out the storm that cancelled the Pan America launch and caused all that havoc on the Awatere Valley Road had really made a mess of this road also. Stunning scenery nonetheless, and a great relaxing way to round off 3 days and 800 kilometers of riding. We were in Picton before we knew it, and with plenty of time to relax, get some lunch, and hurry up and wait for the ferry.
Alright, well that's it ladies and gentlemen, we are in Picton and it is a beautiful, gorgeous day. We've got the bikes here, Todd's with me, we've made it safe and sound. Todd, how do you feel?
Good. It's been a good weekend away. Great way to spend a long weekend, I think.
What spot?
Yeah.
We're going to catch that boat, not that one, but that one. And we're going to go over there in about an hour. We've got final check-in. But otherwise, one particularly grubby V-Strom that was, for me, the surprise of the trip. And one absolutely outstanding Harley-Davidson Pan America. If you want to know all the details, then check out the podcast, Kiwi Rider Podcast on all platforms. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. But Todd, we've talked about it. What's your bike? Which one are you taking home? If we had these right here, right now, you get one, I get one. What one do you want?
I'd take the Harley. I've changed my mind so many times on this trip. I would take the Harley. It's probably the biggest surprise for me. I think I looked at it, I was like, yeah, it might be okay. I didn't expect to like it this much. I feel a little embarrassed how much I like it because
it's a Harley.
Because it's a Harley, yeah.
If they had Yamaha on the side, you'd be like, yeah, I'm keen.
Yeah, I think I would. It's just it's a shift. Like there's the Harley brand, and then now they've brought something new, and we got to recalibrate what it means to be riding a Harley. And I'm sort of doing that. It's hard on the brain. Like I'm not ready for it, but it was a really good bike. Really good bike. And the V-Strom was what I expected of the V-Strom. It was fantastic. I had to make a lot of changes. I think we got some video footage of me making some changes. I found the bike got better over the whole trip. The Harley was amazing out of the gate. The V-Strom, we had to kind of get to the place that it was a really fantastic bike to ride.
Do you think maybe because the V-Strom was brand spanking new, like 0 Ks, 8 Ks on the clock when we got it, where the Pan America's done, or had done about 3,000 when we got it. Has that got anything to do with it, do you think, or nah?
I don't know. I've never owned a brand new bike, so I'm not sure of the what that first 2,000 kilometers does to a bike. It definitely did get better. I don't know if that's because we changed or because we modified it or it grew on us, but it was. I mean, I would take the V-Strom. I would take the V-Strom. I think if I was to be given one of the bikes, I'd take the Pan America. But if I was to buy, I'd probably buy the V-Strom, because I reckon with $1,500 of modifications, it would be like my Tiger 800.
And with $1,500 of modifications, it's still cheaper than the Pan America.
By a long way.
So it's budget.
And right now, I'd be happy to push the V-Strom over and just pick it up, right? Where the Pan America is like, I don't know, I don't really want to push it over. It's kind of shiny, it's kind of nice. I don't know. I think the V-Strom does kind of feel more like the sort of bike I would buy. But the Pan America is so good, so good.
So there you have it, 750, almost 800 Ks of tarmac and gravel. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do the Molesworth because, well, you know, things happen, gates don't get open. A lot of roads around here have been really knocked about by storms, but hey, that's just an excuse to come back, right?
Yep, we will. Definitely before next year. We got to come back here before next year. Yeah.